Welcome back to another episode of Poems and Potions. We will be finishing our interview with Karen Scott today, and we're just going to jump right in where we left off. Enjoy.
I wanted to ask before we move on to anything else, because you brought up this learning Scottish and Gaelic. Can we talk some more about that? Like, how did you come to want to know that particular language? And how's that experience been for you? How's that going? How
Okay,
did it start? How's it going?
how's it going? I have a 745-day streak on Duolingo. And I started learning it with the idea that I'm not a person who can keep a streak going. And so I made a few false starts. But basically, me learning Gaelic was pretty much a pandemic project. You know, everybody had those pandemic projects. You know, some people learned how to make bread and baked bread all through the pandemic, etc. Learning another language was one of my pandemic projects. And as far as why Scottish Gaelic, I figured that I've probably been a Scotophile for all of my life. I mean, my childhood dogs were the rough-coated collie. I read Albert Payson Terhune books. And it turns out he's a Scottish author. Well, actually, he was a New Yorker, but he had a Scottish background. And I also just read animal stories in general. I remember sixth grade, you know, you had to do the dreaded book report. And I got a note back from my teacher in sixth grade. She goes, "Your next book, make it be something other than an animal book." Okay. So anyway, the other thing is I'm also doing my genealogy and yet another project in my family genealogy. And 25% of my DNA is is like the British Isles, UK, and 5% of that is Scottish. The other thing is, like I said, I took Latin in high school and in college, and I said I want to learn a new language. I don't want to learn a Romance language, the ones based on Latin. So what shall I try? And I didn't want to do German. I didn't, unlike my daughter, I didn't want to do Japanese or Chinese, which she has done, because Chinese in particular is very tonal. And I would say what I thought she was saying, and she'd go, "Nope, nope, nope, that's not it." So I needed I needed a language that was not quite as tonal. And actually, I don't think they have enough. They obviously do not have enough native speakers for the Duolingo program, because every now and then you'll have an exercise which will be audio clips, a multiple choice, audio clips, and then the words that was said. And you won't get any sound with the audio clip because they didn't get a native speaker to record it. I mean, Gaelic wasn't taught for a spell there in the schools, and they have gone back to teaching it. But it is a different language, and it's gotten to be kind of fun. I mean, I probably don't get all my pronunciations right, because a lot of times I pronounce the words the way that it helps me remember how to spell them, which is nothing like how they are spoken. And a real quick example of that is the suffix AIDH. I would say that in my head as aid, And so I would know how to spell it. But its pronunciation is the long E. So if I said a word Cofaidh, Ryan, what do you think that is?
Coffee.
You got it.
I really need to get back. I didn't know that they were teaching Celtic in schools or Gaelic. I'm sorry.
In Scotland, I mean, in Scotland, they did not teach Gaelic for a while. I don't know if they got away from it in Ireland too, because Scots Irish and Scots Gaelic and Irish Gaelic are so close together because they're just across that narrow channel and people move back and forth freely. So a lot of times you can figure out the Scots and the Irish Gaelic, they're same thing. But I don't think they were teaching them in their public schools, and then they have gone back to it now. They're offering it again. But that would be like, in elementary school here in Ohio, and they're like, we're not teaching English anymore.
Right.
I'm glad. I hope that comes to the United States, because I know a lot of people who are really interested in Gaelic, in learning all of that, and it is fun to try and pronounce.
That's what Duolingo is good. I'm not getting paid by Duolingo, but Duolingo is pretty good for learning languages, and then it points up how badly Google translates. I mean, I had a Korean friend, and I thought I'd get real cute, and I wrote her a letter in Korean off of Google Translate, and she goes, "Where did you get this translation? It's not good." but also, if people are interested in learning Gaelic, there are the YouTube videos. There's Gaelic with Matthew, and he's the one that taught. He breaks things down so well, and also because he's the one that I got the pronunciation of AIDH. I wasn't getting that from Duolingo. And he makes it make sense and easy. So yeah.
That's cool. Thank you for sharing that very much. It's the joy of an ADHD person. We keep talking. It's like, oh, tell me about that. Ooh, tell me about that. Ooh.
Yay for ADHD. I've never been diagnosed, but my daughter has. And then one day we were in conversation and she looked at me, she goes, "You got it too." And I said, "Well, where do you think you got it from?" But
I was the first one in my family who was diagnosed with it. And more now, looking back, now that we have lists of symptoms, and then looking at my parents, it's like, oh, okay.
And I've told people, partly because I'm retired, I don't suffer from ADHD. It is not a suffering thing. I enjoy it. I am living it. I have fun with it, and I give myself grace for when it leads me into trouble. But I don't suffer from ADHD.
I like that. That's a better way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pass that on to people when they tell me that. Thank you for that, Keenan. So, somebody who would take on the challenge of learning Gaelic, or just the challenge of learning another language, later in life. So, did you have challenges that as you were moving through writing poetry that helped with your growth in poetry? Were there any particular challenges, or is there a particular piece that you wrote that you found challenging that helped you grow as a poet? And did the challenges, if you had any, or this particular piece, help you understand how to connect with people who would hear and or read your poetry?
Good question. I don't necessarily know that it's a challenge with poetry, but basically, I was kind of a painfully shy child, and I dreaded, like a large percentage of the population, public speaking. And I definitely was an introvert at one time. I still am an introvert because it becomes a matter of energy levels. Introverts are drained by social interaction, whereas extroverts, if you get an extrovert in front of a crowd, they recharge their batteries there. Introverts have to isolate and recharge their batteries. When I met my husband, and through our married life, basically we were changing. I was an introvert becoming extrovert, and he was an extrovert becoming an introvert. So we both became like a middle line. For me, poetry and the open mic was a challenge, and getting to where the comfortableness I feel with it now, as opposed to when I first started. A lot of times with open mic, my main goal was to make it to the stage without tripping and falling. And then you had to learn how to breathe and not race through your piece, and how to pace your timing, and that becomes a lot more comfortable too the more you do it, because then out in the audience you've got people to connect with who are now your friends. So poetry and especially reading on the open mic has been a tool to make me more outgoing. So that was a challenge in itself that poetry helped conquer.
I don't know why I think of the question and it goes away.
That I know why.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, okay, you got it. You got it. Yeah.
You should have written that down, Ryan, when it came across your head.
I should have. I should have. And that's, something interesting. You talk about being a percolator poet, and as we're having this discussion, I'm now kind of curious. One, how many poets have ADHD or ADD, or to another extent ASD, because each one is its own special way of seeing and perceiving and going along with the world. I'd be really interested to just have a conversation with a bunch of ADHD poets just to hear their creative processes, because I'm curious how many ADHD poets are also the percolator type style.
And just poets in general, I think you will find that there are probably a lot of poets who are introverts, because we become observers of people. We're the wallflowers. We're the people at the edge of the crowd, observing the crowd. So introverts, empaths, people who feel what other people are going through, or at least can imagine it. And then a lot of poets are also wordsmiths and word-mongers, people who love words. And so we take what we observe, what we feel with other people, and then we turn it into poetry. And so there are a lot of poets, more than you would know, than you would think, that are introverts. So, yeah.
And it is really kind of interesting how that open mic and getting out can kind of help to break that introversion a little.
Right.
And yeah.
And there are some famous poets who are introverts. You'd never know it.
So kind of a weird question, because Marquita was saying, she has experience with radio. She is an actor. So that makes me very curious too, as far as the acting aspect, being an introvert. Is it something? I don't know. There's a thought there. I'll write that down and we'll go with it. If you would ever be interested in the future, if I can do something that's poetry and ADHD themed, I would be very, very honored if you wanted.
But you got to figure in the theater, most of your introverts are usually we're the scene makers and the and the and the stage managers maybe, but we're not usually the lead actor or even the supporting actress.
Yeah, but I don't know why it's just so different for me because I am really an introvert, but I love acting. I mean, that's the only time. I mean, but I'm a preacher too. So I've always been the creative part of me has forced me to be in extroverted things, but they don't charge me. I just like to do them. And so then the introvert part I go and recharge by myself. So like you said, so yeah. So you got any words of wisdom for aspiring poets, Karen? Those of us who, have been kind of plugging away at this for a little while, or we started later in life, or, or people who've been doing it, but, you still got to get the motivation to do it. So,
well, one of the big ones is, and since I'm the social media person on Facebook for Ohio Poetry Association, but when I'm welcoming people to our public page, I always throw in there that we recommend that you find a writing group, people that you can write with, so you can bounce your ideas off of, and so that they have fresh eyes on the project, and people with different skill set. And I love being part of Salon, which is a long running writing group, and everybody has their own kind of niche, people that you can expect feedback from in areas of nature, word usage, and then the crafty parts of poetry, to recognize forms and encourage you to work in forms, and then just plain old editorship. It's nice to have a few editors in your writing group who can point out pronunciation and usage and line breaks. And so I always recommend that people find a group of people, a writing group, an established one if you can. And seriously, if you don't, you can just get together a couple of people that you trust their opinions and their critique, and write together and help each other build their craft. And then my other one is, as poets, always keep paper, pen, voice recorder handy, so that when those ideas flit across your head, then you do it. You just write them down. That's why we write on receipts and envelopes and all of those things. And at a reading, you'll sometimes see me take out my pad. I'm not stealing people's poetry, but something they've said strikes a chord, and then I have an opening line or a line or two for my poem. So I write them down. So always have something to write on and something to write with.
I'm really glad that you said that. One, thank you for talking about the voice recorder. That is so indispensable. But you also were talking about writing things down when you're at a reading. And you actually said something at your reading for Rhapsody and Refrain that I had to write down. It was so wonderful. You don't write poetry when you're blissfully happy. I love it. It's true. Thank you for saying it. It's also very much a challenge to try and start writing poetry, documenting when you are happy, all of those good memories, those joyous things, so that when you look back in that book, it's not just sadness that you're seeing. So thank you for saying that.
Mm-hmm. What? I probably should have gotten stuck in these little yellow legal pads. That's what I always carry these around and fill them up. And I've said that one of my projects needs to be to go back through boxes full of those things and the unfinished poems that are in there, get them on paper. But that's how they usually started, was on legal pads. But then there's always all that paper that comes to you through the mail, because those junk papers, I mean, I feed them back through my printer and print poems on them. Envelopes, return envelopes. Just, yeah, it's a piece of paper.
You just given me a whole new source for paper. Thank you.
Some of the security envelopes, you open them up, they have a really pretty pattern in the inside if you're also a paper crafter.
Karen, we've come to that point in this interview when we want you to share one of your poems with us.
Marquita, since you told me that you liked Warrior, I'll do Warrior. And again, like I said at the reading, it's Warrior, Warrior, because on one of the Zooms, I had somebody ask me later, your husband was a lawyer? And I'm like, no, that changes the whole point.
Right.
He was not a lawyer. He was a warrior. Okay. Warrior. When you date a warrior, you learn new ways to conduct yourself in public. No walking hand in hand, no slipping your hand in his hip pocket. Save such things for the safety of your homes. When you fall in love with a warrior, you learn a different way of moving through the world. Head on the swivel, ever alert. If you two give someone a ride, move to the back seat and plan a defense. When you live with a warrior, you communicate in silent code, subtle gestures, telepathic glances. You fall silently into formation, shift automatically into position, wait for a signal, act decisively. When you marry a warrior, you learn not to wake him with a kiss. You learn to tap him gently, call his name softly, lest you find yourself screaming, I'm your wife, as his hand closes around your neck and you face his cocked fist. When you marry a warrior, you become one too. Walk a pace behind him in a crowd. Allow him to cut a path as you play backup, your daughter sandwiched in between. When your warrior falls in battle, you take up his standard, pen his epic sagas, defend his name, his child, your kingdom. You are a seasoned warrior in a deceptive package. No one knows how deadly you truly are.
Thank you so much for reading that. And thank you for reading that at your reading as well. Ooh.
That piece is so powerful. It's so powerful, Karen. And I just love it. I remember the first time I heard you read it. We were actually on Writer's Block Zoom. It's the first time I heard you read it. And then when you said you were getting ready to read it at your feature at Streetlight Guild, I was like, oh yes, I love that poem because I of course didn't have the pleasure of ever meeting your husband. And
He's
so
been gone a while.
yeah. And so that, but you introduced him to me. And you also introduced yourself to me in this piece. I love it. I just find it so powerful. So thank you for sharing that with our listeners. And yeah, if to those listening, if you ever get a chance to go and hear Karen Scott feature somewhere, you really will be doing yourself a great service if you go do that.
Thank you.
I can't agree more with that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you know, will you be part of Rhapsody and Refrain in 2024?
Yeah, that's up to Scott. I don't know when he starts building his list.
Well, and this is the first year I've had experience with it. Is it usually like, do we have repeat poets, or is it always a new layer of poets each year?
One of the things that you're going to learn about Scott is the possibility of something happening again is strictly in his power. I mean, he is quite the one for the next big thing. So the fact that we have gotten to 3 Rhapsody and Refrains, that's an amazement in itself. You got to remember, well, this is the guy who did 7 years worth of 24-hour marathons and never repeated a poem. So yeah, once a year he would do a 24-hour marathon at Cafe Kerouac, and Mike would keep it open. And yeah,
I give that man
yes,
credit.
that is pretty much the expect the unexpected. You just don't know what is going to be next.
Right.
But even in that, though, he's constant in that. Right. He is always pushing and protecting the culture, the art. He is, he's the man. he's always doing that.
And that said, Ryan, yeah, he probably will have some returning old heads. And he'll also make space for the new kids. So yeah. And so if he does a number 4, you can expect to see some of the older poets, and you can expect to see some of the new on the scene poets, just like every year that he's done it.
Well, I hope that you are one of those poets, because I am going to make sure your show, especially, I try and pack that house past fire code ×3.
There you go, putting pressure on me again.
I'm sorry.
Yes. But follower, because Karen reads other places. Karen is
The next thing is Amy Turnsharp's Secret Studio at the end of the month. Where's that darn calendar? That will be Friday the 29th. And Steve Abbott reminded me while we were at at Lynn Ford's reading, we'll both be on that bill. So I don't know what else Amy's planning, but yeah, the 29th, Secret Studio.
I'm going to try to be there. Definitely.
It's a cool place. So yeah, you should try it.
I'm slowly, because COVID plus my schedule had me very isolated from humanity for a very long time. So I'm pushing, like Cauldron was my start, and I'm trying to get some workshops. I'm hoping to go to Ride On this weekend. So I'm slowly adding more stuff as I go.
Right.
It's just,
that's the way, Brian. That's what I do. I won't.
But you know, Ryan, you were talking about the isolation during pandemic, and because I was used to going out almost every night to poetry, it was really gratifying that everybody went to technology. And so I went out every night on Zooms, and I tried various Zooms, and just even popping in on ones that I had never been to before. And that opened up so much more of the world to you because you know, overseas uh, overseas readings and participants from overseas. And since the world has opened back up, I have some favorites that I do still go to. But I mean, I have relationships with people that I have not met in person, but we clicked on the screen, and so I've got friends all over the country.
Well, send Ryan some of those. Send Ryan some of those so we can know some of these virtual things we could also tap into to meet some other.
One of the things is that somebody, because on the Columbus Poetry Calendar, I kind of like scan Facebook and find events and poetry events, and mostly concentrated around Columbus. Mm-hmm. And then with the venues closing, somebody suggested, hey, we know that you went to a bunch of Zoom ones, a bunch of Zoom venues. Why don't you start posting those? So I have started posting those again. But the ones that I am pretty faithful in attending, there's Cobalt, which is out of Southern California, and it's kind of late at night though. It starts at 10:30 our time, which is 7:30 their time. Okay. But they're a great group, and Rick Lupert is the host. Then some of the others are monthly ones. Marissa Prada has quite a few different shows, but she's out in New Mexico. And then James Bryant is in Sedalia, Missouri, and he has a monthly show, SpoFest. And he also has interview series with poets talking about anything other than craft, so that people can get to know the poets. So, and East Coast. Well, I have a friend, Tara, who's director of the Eastern Shore Writers, and they're always having workshops and things that you could take advantage of. So, but those also show up on the poetry calendar, Columbus Poetry Calendar. So, okay. But yeah,
good. So it's a lot of because I'm I have I've been to one in what I would call an intensive workshop because it was for a whole week.
Oh wow.
Karen Adenazio.
Yeah, Kim.
No, Kim. Adenazio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did a week long with her. And then, just some people I saw you at one. I was so surprised to see you there. I was like, Karen's in the workshop. But see, that's how you learn. That poet, that's what poets do. You know what I'm saying? You still, so that was good to see you there. I was like, okay.
And hit the festivals, because and some of them still do have a virtual portion now, even now that they've gone back to in person. But the festivals, those are fantastic. There's one from the Emily Dickinson Museum, Tell It Slant, and I think I have that posted on the poetry calendar. But I mean, it's fantastic. It comes from the museum, and they have readings and they have workshops. Kim, I think I saw at was it the Toronto Book Festival?
Oh.
And they did a presentation where because she's doing one with musical backup, and Yusuf uh, Yusuf Yakima. Oh darn it!
Oh, I know you're talking about.
Thank
I know.
you. He
Yeah.
has a backup, and I learned a new group because they're his backup and a new musical artist. But yeah, hit the festivals. And in fact, at the end of August this year, I had, from a reading I did for Raul James, who has inspired Poetry Corner, I got an invitation from Lorraine Curley then to read in the Bronx the Bronx Book Fair, and that was at the end of August. And she had a big poetry showcase and had like 41 poets read like 5 minutes each, and and it was fantastic. So yeah, the book festivals definitely take advantage of Lit Cleveland, and there's one in Quake Lit Quake in San Francisco, and just go on Facebook and go poetry events and online, and yeah, so
Thank you.
mhm.
All right.
I'm trying to
Well,
think if there's anything else besides my usual distracted mind.
no, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much, Ken. So
Hey, thank you all for this opportunity.
I very much appreciate this. Yes, thank you. And that's our show.
that's our show. That is our show for today.
Thank you for joining us for today's interview. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we'll see you the next time. Bye-bye. Poems and Potions is produced by Mandar Kath, Marquita Byers, and R. Taryn Lear. Music provided by Charity Dietrich. Sound support provided by A.D. Dietrich.